My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 31 years old. And the strange thing about the moment your life quietly fractures is that it rarely sounds like a disaster when it begins. There's no warning, no raised voices, no dramatic silence that makes you brace for impact. Sometimes it happens over something as ordinary as pasta on a Tuesday night. 4 hours ago, I had a boyfriend. Or maybe that's not the right way to say it. 4 hours ago, I had a man I thought was building a future with me. His name was Ethan Cole. We'd been together for about 18 months. And for the past 7, he'd been living in this strange in-between space in my life. Not officially moved in, but close enough that his presence had seeped into everything. His shoes by the door, his shirts folded into my laundry, his packages arriving under my address. 5 nights a week, sometimes more, like a shadow that had quietly learned the shape of my home. I own a townhouse, 2 bedrooms, quiet neighborhood, something I worked hard for. Bought it 3 years ago, long before Ethan came into the picture. He had his own place across town, a small studio he still paid for every month, $900. But he barely stayed there, 2 nights a week at most. We'd talked about him giving it up, moving in properly, making this official. But every time the conversation got close to that point, he'd pull back. "I'm not ready yet," he'd say. "I need my own space." And I believed him. I respected that. I never pushed. Tonight was supposed to be nothing. Just dinner. I made pasta. Nothing fancy. Just something warm, familiar. We were halfway through talking about some show we'd been watching when he suddenly stopped. Fork hovering midair, eyes fixed somewhere just past me. And then he said, "I need to tell you something." His tone, it was wrong. Too flat. Too controlled. Like he'd practiced it. I remember setting my fork down slowly, looking at him, waiting. He didn't hesitate. "I don't love you anymore." Just like that. No build-up, no soft landing. "No, we need to talk." "I haven't for months. I think we should end this." For a second, my brain didn't catch up. It was like the words existed in the air between us, but refused to land. Months, plural, which meant every dinner, every laugh, every quiet morning had been built on something already gone. I looked at him, really looked, and what I saw wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't guilt. It was expectation, like he was waiting for something. A reaction, tears, panic, a scene. But none of that came. Instead, I heard myself say very calmly, "Okay, thank you for being honest." Something flickered across his face. Fast. Confusion. Then something sharper. Disappointment. "That's it?" he asked. "That's all you're going to say?" I tilted my head slightly. "What else is there to say?" His jaw tightened. "You're not going to ask why? Or try to fix this?" There it was. That word. Fix. Like this was a crack in a wall, not a demolition. "You said you haven't loved me for months," I replied. "That's not something you fix in one conversation." I paused. "You've clearly thought about this." He stared at me like I'd missed my cue in a play, like I'd skipped a line he needed me to say. I stood up, slowly, held out my hand. "I need my house key back." That's when everything changed. His expression snapped. "What?" "Now," I said. "Please." "Right now?" he repeated, disbelief creeping into his voice. "Yes," I said. "We're not together anymore. You don't need access to my house." For a moment, he just sat there, looking at me like I'd become someone else. "I still have stuff here," he said finally. "You can pick it up this weekend," I replied, "but I need the key now." His movements were slower now, less controlled. He reached into his pocket, then his bag, like he was buying time. Finally, he pulled the key out and dropped it onto the table with a sharp metallic sound. "Fine," he said, "if that's how you want to do this." I met his gaze evenly. "You ended this," I said. "I'm respecting that." A beat. "Did you expect to keep coming and going after breaking up with me?" "I just thought you'd—" He stopped himself, swallowed. "You could at least act like you care." There it was again. Expectation. Not of love, but of performance. "I did care," I said quietly. Past tense. I let the silence stretch. "You told me you stopped loving me months ago. Why would I fight for someone who already left?" Something in his expression cracked then. Not sadness. Something closer to frustration. "This is unbelievable," he muttered, grabbing his jacket. "You're really going to be like this?" "Like what?" I asked. He didn't answer, just shook his head and walked toward the door. When it slammed shut behind him, the house felt different, quieter, but not empty. Not the way I expected. I went back to the table, finished my pasta, washed the dishes, dried my hands. Then I sat down on the couch, opened my phone, changed my relationship status to single, updated my profile picture, removed him from my digital life as cleanly as I had from my physical one. Around 10 that night, my phone started lighting up. Calls, texts, his name over and over again.
10.
I didn't answer. By midnight, there were 51 missed calls, 83 messages. And as I stared at the screen in the dark, a slow, unsettling realization began to settle in. He hadn't expected this. This hadn't gone the way he planned. And whatever game he thought we were playing, I had just refused to follow the script. I turned my phone off, set it on the nightstand, and for the first time that night, I felt something that wasn't shock.
Jeb.
It was clarity. Something was wrong, not with the breakup, but with the way it had happened, the way he'd looked at me, the way he'd waited, like he wasn't ending something, like he was testing it. And I had just failed, or maybe refused to play.
Wait.
Either way, I had the feeling this wasn't over, not even close. I woke up the next morning to sunlight pressing through the blinds and a silence so deep it almost felt staged. For one disoriented second, I forgot. Then I looked at the dark screen of my phone on the nightstand and remembered everything. Ethan. Dinner. The key hitting the table. His face when I didn't beg. I reached for my phone, turned it back on, and watched it come alive in my hand like I'd resuscitated something toxic. Notifications flooded in immediately. Missed calls, voicemails, texts stacked on top of each other so fast the screen kept shifting. By the time it finished loading, the numbers had climbed even higher. And when I started reading, the pattern was impossible to miss. The first messages had been angry. Are you seriously doing this? Claire, answer me. You can't just shut down like that. Then came confusion. I didn't think you'd react like this. Can we please talk? Why are you acting cold? Then came tears, panic, accusation. I can't believe you're throwing this away. You were supposed to care more than this. How can you sleep after what happened? Please call me. Please. I sat there in bed, reading them one by one, and what should have felt heartbreaking instead felt revealing, because none of the messages said the thing that mattered. Not once did he say, I'm sorry for what I said. Not once did he say, I shouldn't have told you I didn't love you if it wasn't true. Not once did he take responsibility for detonating the relationship in my kitchen and expecting me to stand still in the blast. Every single message circled the same wound. I hadn't reacted the way he wanted. That was the center of it, not his words, not the breakup, my response. And that was when the truth landed fully. This had been a test, a cruel, childish, manipulative test. He had wanted tears, wanted me to panic, wanted me to ask what I could do, what I could change, how I could make him stay. He wanted proof, a grand emotional performance he could measure and hold up like evidence that he mattered. And because I took him seriously, because I responded like an adult instead of a performer, he was spiraling. I set the phone down and laughed once, not because anything was funny, because sometimes betrayal is so absurd your body doesn't know what else to do. At 7:03 that morning, my doorbell camera lit up. Ethan, standing on my porch in the same jacket he'd left in the night before, hair messy, jaw tight, looking like a man who had worked himself into a state somewhere between wounded and furious. He hit the bell again, then started knocking. Hard. I opened the camera app and listened. Claire, he shouted, I know you're in there. Open the door. We need to talk. I didn't move toward the front entrance, didn't even stand up from the edge of the bed. Instead, I pressed the speaker button and said, calm and clear, we broke up. There's nothing to talk about. You can get your things this weekend. He froze when he heard my voice through the speaker. Then his expression twisted. Are you serious right now? He snapped. You're talking to me through a camera? Yes, I said, because you do not live here. His laugh was sharp and humorless. You're being childish. No, I replied. I'm being careful. He stepped closer to the camera, face tilting upward. Claire, let me in. No. Come on. No. He dragged a hand through his hair, then lowered his voice into something strained and pleading. Can we please just talk like normal people? That almost got me. Not because I believed him. Because of the hypocrisy. He wanted normal now. After sitting at my table the night before and telling me he hadn't loved me for months in the tone of a man canceling a haircut. You told me you don't love me, I said. You ended the relationship. Please leave my porch. His eyes hardened. So that's it? 18 months and you're just done? I stared at the screen. No, Ethan. You were done. I'm accepting it. He stood there for another few seconds, breathing hard. Then he kicked my doormat. Actually kicked it. A full-grown man throwing a tantrum at a rectangle of coir on my front step because he hadn't gotten the reaction he ordered. He muttered something I couldn't make out and walked off. I watched until his car pulled away. Then I showered, got dressed for work, and left through the garage. By noon, the first outside message arrived from his sister. Not his mother, not a cousin. His sister Marissa. We'd been cordial, never close. The kind of relationship built on holiday dinners and occasional birthday texts. Her message was short. What did you do to him? He's been crying for 2 days. I stared at it for a long moment before replying. He broke up with me. Told me he hasn't loved me for months. I asked for my key back. That's what happened. She answered almost instantly. He said you basically threw him out with no warning. I looked at that message and felt something cold move through me. No warning. The irony almost insulted me. He told me at dinner that he didn't love me anymore and wanted to end it, I typed back. If he's upset about the consequences of that, he should think about why he said it. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing, no reply, which told me she either realized the story she'd been given had holes in it, or she didn't want the version with facts. That evening, while I was halfway through reheating soup I barely wanted, my phone rang again. A number I didn't know. Normally I would have ignored it, but something in me thought maybe it was work. So I answered. Hello? A woman's voice came through, brisk and already annoyed. Claire, this is Vanessa, Ethan's friend. I closed my eyes for a second. Of course. I'm listening, I said. You need to apologize to him. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it, as if the sentence might change shape if I checked. Then I brought it back. For what? For being cruel, she said. He opened up to you about his feelings and you just shut him down and kicked him out like he meant nothing. My grip tightened around the phone. He told me he didn't love me anymore and wanted to end the relationship, I said. I accepted that. That's not the point. I let out a soft breath. That is exactly the point. She made a frustrated noise. No, the point is he was vulnerable with you and you gave up immediately. There it was again. That word. Gave up. As if refusing to audition for someone's affection was some kind of moral failure. He said he hasn't loved me for months, I said, enunciating each word. Why would I beg someone to stay after that? Silence. Then Vanessa said, with the maddening certainty of someone who mistakes nonsense for wisdom, because sometimes people say things to see if you'll fight for them. I leaned back against the kitchen counter. Then that's manipulation. Oh, please. No, I said, sharper now. Please listen carefully. If a person wants reassurance, they ask for reassurance. If they want commitment, they have an honest conversation. They do not stage a breakup and expect applause when the other person panics. She scoffed. Every woman does that. I almost laughed again. Then every woman who does that needs therapy, not validation. The silence on the other end turned hostile. You're being stubborn. And Ethan is being manipulative. He wants you back. If he wanted a healthy relationship, I said, he should have acted like an adult instead of treating my emotions like a loyalty exam. Her tone cooled. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll regret it with my self-respect intact. And then I hung up, blocked her number, went back to my soup. By the third spoonful, it had gone cold. On the third day, he emailed me. Subject line, please read this. We need to talk. I should have deleted it. Instead, I opened it. It was 6 paragraphs long. 6 paragraphs of accusation dressed up as pain. He wrote that I had abandoned him, that he had been going through something, that he needed to know I would still be there when things got hard, that my calmness had proved I never really loved him the way he loved me, that he couldn't stop replaying the dinner and wondering how I could be so detached after everything we shared. I read the whole thing twice. Then I sat back in my chair and looked out the window over the sink. It was such a strange thing, watching someone create a version of events where they were the wounded one, simply because their manipulation failed. He had told me he didn't love me, out loud, clearly, repeatedly. But somehow I was the villain because I believed him. There was still no apology in the email, no ownership, no moment of self-awareness. Only blame dressed in softer language. I responded with one line. You ended the relationship. I respected your decision. There is nothing more to discuss. His reply came so fast I knew he'd been sitting there waiting. Can I at least come get my stuff? I stared at the message a moment before answering. Saturday, 2 p.m. Bring someone to help. You'll have 1 hour. He responded again. 1 hour? I have a lot there. Then pack efficiently, I wrote back. And you are not coming alone. A long pause this time. Then, why are you being like this? I didn't answer, because I was starting to understand something I should have seen sooner. This wasn't just about a breakup. This was about access. To my house, my time, my emotional energy, my stability. And once I stopped giving him unrestricted access to those things, he called it cruelty. That night, I walked through the townhouse slowly, room by room, and for the first time, I saw the relationship through the harsh fluorescent light of hindsight. The extra groceries, the streaming subscriptions he used but never paid toward, The water bill creeping higher. The gas I used driving when he didn't feel like it. The dinners out where I almost always reached for the check because it was easier. The little daily conveniences that had slowly become expectations. Nothing dramatic enough to start a fight, but enough added together to form a pattern. A quiet dependence. Over 7 months, I'd been subsidizing a life he was already halfway living inside my home. Not because I was forced to, because I cared. Because when you love someone, generosity feels natural. But standing there in my kitchen, looking at the fruit he liked in my bowl and the coffee he drank in my cabinet, I felt the numbers begin to line themselves up in my mind. $600 a month, maybe more. 7 months. A figure somewhere between kindness and exploitation. I wasn't angry about the money itself. I was angry about what it revealed. That while I thought we were building trust, he was apparently building a test. By Friday night, I had started boxing his things. Neatly, methodically. Folded clothes, toiletries, books, chargers. The expensive mugs he swore coffee tasted better in. Every item I packed felt like a sentence ending. And with each box, my emotions became less chaotic. Cleaner, sharper, not less painful, just more honest. I wasn't grieving the loss of some beautiful, stable love story. I was grieving the version of the relationship I had believed in. That was different, and somehow worse, because it meant I had been loyal to something he was willing to gamble for reassurance. Saturday was coming, and I could feel with a kind of eerie certainty that he still believed this story might bend back in his favor. That if he showed up emotional enough, sorry enough, wounded enough, I might reopen the door. Literally, figuratively. But something in me had gone still. The kind of stillness that comes after a storm warning, when the sky looks almost normal again, but the air has changed. And deep down I knew this. The hardest part wasn't going to be giving him his things back. The hardest part was going to be watching him realize. I meant it when I said goodbye. Saturday arrived with a kind of quiet precision that made everything feel inevitable. No anxiety, no second guessing, just clarity. I woke up early, not because I had to, because my body was done waiting. The night before, I'd finished packing everything, every last trace of Ethan that didn't belong to me. Clothes folded into 2 large boxes, toiletries sealed into a smaller one, books stacked neatly, spines aligned like they had been on my shelf. 3 shopping bags filled with the random things that accumulate when someone slowly merges into your life. Coffee mugs, a hoodie he left here in October, a charger he once said he couldn't sleep without. Nothing missing, nothing hidden, nothing kept. Closure in cardboard form. By noon, everything was lined up by the front door. Not in the living room, not scattered. Right by the exit, exactly where it needed to be. At 1:58 p.m., I checked the camera. Empty driveway. At 2 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. I opened the app, and there he was, Ethan, standing on the porch. But he wasn't alone. To his right stood a woman I recognized immediately, his mother. And beside her, arms folded, eyes scanning my house like she already disapproved of everything inside it, his sister, Marissa. Of course, he didn't come to pick up his things. He came with witnesses, or maybe reinforcements. I took a slow breath, unlocked the door, opened it just enough to stand in the doorway. Didn't step aside, didn't invite them in. Everything's here, I said, gesturing to the boxes beside me. His mother didn't even look at them. Her focus locked onto me instantly. We need to talk about this situation. No, I said calmly, we don't. I nudged one of the boxes slightly forward with my foot. Take your things and go. Ethan shifted beside her. His confidence from earlier in the week, gone. Replaced by something more fragile, more uncertain. You're really not going to let us come in? Marissa asked, her tone already edged with judgment. No, I said. His mother stepped forward slightly, her voice tightening. You're making a mistake. I held her gaze. He told me he hasn't loved me for months, I said. I'm respecting that. Ethan's head snapped toward me. Claire. No, I cut in gently, not raising my voice. You said it clearly. I don't love you anymore. I haven't for months. I paused. Those were your exact words.
Jeez.
His face crumpled, not dramatically, not theatrically, just cracked. I didn't mean it like that, he said quickly. I was confused. I tilted my head. You sounded very certain. His mother stepped in again. She was scared, she said, correcting herself awkwardly. He was scared. People say things they don't mean when they're overwhelmed. I let that sit in the air for a moment, then said evenly, he didn't say he was overwhelmed. He said he didn't love me. Ethan took a step forward. Claire, please, can we just talk? Without... He gestured vaguely to his mother and sister. All this? No, I said. The word landed harder than anything else I'd said so far, because it wasn't reactive. It was final. Marissa scoffed. Come on, everyone makes mistakes. And that's true, I said, and everyone lives with the consequences of those mistakes. Ethan's composure slipped further. You're acting like I cheated on you or something, he said, frustration bleeding through. I said something stupid. That's it. No, I replied quietly. You didn't say something stupid. I met his eyes. You told me you didn't love me anymore. A beat, and you expected me not to believe you. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. His mother tried again, softer this time. What about everything you two had? She asked. All the time you spent together? You're just going to throw that away? I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar. That script. That emotional appeal. He threw it away, I said. I'm just cleaning up. But Ethan's breathing had gone uneven now, his hands flexing at his sides like he didn't know what to do with them. I still have stuff inside, he said suddenly. In the bedroom, my laptop charger, some shoes. It's all here, I replied. I checked. Can I just come in and look? He asked, his voice dropping into something softer, almost pleading now. Please. No. This time his frustration broke clean through. You're being ridiculous. No, I said again. I'm being consistent. His mother's patience snapped. This is unbelievable, she said. He practically lived here. You can't just erase him like this. I held her gaze. Watch me. The words hung in the air. Sharp. Unapologetic. For a moment, no one moved. They were waiting. Still, even now, waiting for me to soften, to hesitate, to give them something they could use. But I didn't. Finally, Marissa exhaled sharply and bent down to grab one of the boxes. Fine, she muttered. Let's just take this stuff and go. His mother followed, lifting one of the bags. Ethan didn't move. He just stood there, looking at me. Eyes glassy now. I can't believe you were really doing this, he said.
Yes.
I met his gaze steadily. You did this, I said. You ended it. His voice broke, but I didn't mean it. And there it was. Finally, not dressed up, not hidden. The truth. I felt something shift in my chest. Not sympathy, not relief, just confirmation. You meant it enough to say it, I replied. I was testing you, he admitted, the words tumbling out now, messy and desperate. I needed to know you actually cared, that you'd fight for me. There it was, out loud, exactly what I had known all along. I nodded slowly. And instead, I said, you told me you didn't love me. I didn't think you'd take it like that, he said quickly. I thought you'd react, say something, stop me. You wanted me to panic, I said. He flinched. I wanted to know I mattered. I held his gaze. You did matter, I said quietly, until you turned my feelings into a test. Silence again. But this time, it felt different. He stepped closer, not crossing the threshold, but close enough that I could see every flicker of regret in his expression. I still love you, he said. I believed him. In that moment, I actually believed him. But it didn't change anything. Love doesn't look like that, I said. His face tightened. People make mistakes, Claire. Yes, I said, they do. I gestured toward the boxes. And then they live with what those mistakes cost them. His mother shifted, clearly uncomfortable now. Ethan, she said quietly, we should go. But he didn't move. Can we just talk? He asked again, softer now. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. I shook my head. No. That was the moment it ended. Not the dinner, not the messages, not the days of back and forth through other people. This.
Okay.
The moment he realized there was no version of this where I reopened the door. Something in him collapsed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just gave way. He looked down, nodded once, slow, defeated. Okay, he said. He bent down finally and picked up the last box. No one said anything else. I stepped back, closed the door, locked it. And on the other side, I could hear it. His mother speaking in low, urgent tones, Marissa muttering something sharp, and Ethan, silent. The sound of footsteps, the car doors, the engine starting. Then nothing. I stood there for a long moment, my hand still resting on the door, waiting. For regret, for doubt, for something to crack inside me. But it didn't come. Instead, there was only stillness. Clean, quiet, final. I turned away. walked back into the living room, sat down on the couch, and for the first time since Tuesday night, I let myself breathe. Really breathe. Because whatever this had been, whatever version of love he thought required tests and performances and emotional traps, I had just walked away from it. And I wasn't going back. The house felt different after that day. Not empty, not lonely, just mine. The first week passed quietly. Too quietly, almost. No late-night calls. No sudden knocks on the door. No unexpected messages lighting up my screen. I'd blocked his number the night I dropped off the last of his things. His charger, sealed in a plastic bag, handed over to his building's front desk with my name written neatly across it. No conversation. No eye contact. No final moment. Just done. For a while, I kept waiting for something. A second wave. A new tactic. Because people like Ethan don't usually stop when their first strategy fails. They adjust. They escalate. They try again. And for a couple of weeks, he did. Not directly, not anymore, but through other channels. A mutual friend mentioned he wasn't doing well. Missing work. Barely sleeping. As if I was supposed to hear that and feel something shift inside me. As if his discomfort was a currency he could spend to buy his way back into my life. Another friend, one of the few who hadn't picked a side, told me something interesting. Something that made everything fall into place. Ethan hadn't just been thinking about moving in. He had already decided. Months ago. The studio apartment he'd been holding on to, it wasn't really a home anymore. It was a placeholder, a safety net, something he could point to and say, see, I still have my own space, while slowly, quietly making mine his primary life. And then there was the part that made me sit very still when I heard it. The breakup wasn't supposed to be a breakup. It was supposed to be leverage. He had planned it, not in detail, not with some elaborate script, but with intention. He wanted to see how far I'd go, how much I'd fight, how much I'd prove. Because if I fought hard enough, if I begged, if I cried, if I asked him to stay, that would mean I was fully invested, fully committed, safe. And once he felt secure in that, he would finally choose me, move in officially, close the door on his other life. It was almost impressive, in a detached, clinical kind of way. Except for one problem. I didn't play my role, and because of that, the entire plan collapsed. He didn't get reassurance, didn't get control, didn't get the emotional performance he was expecting. Instead, he lost everything at once. His relationship, his access to my home, his carefully balanced in-between life. And apparently, his backup plan. 3 days after the breakup, he gave up his studio. Couldn't afford it anymore. He moved back in with his parents. 28 years old, back in his childhood bedroom. Man, I didn't hear that from him. Of course not. I heard it from the same neutral friend who had quietly watched both sides of this unfold without inserting themselves. There was something almost poetic about it. Not in a cruel way, just balanced. He had wanted to test stability, and in doing so, he revealed how unstable his own foundation really was. By week 3, the attempt shifted again. An email. Subject line. The real reason I said what I said. I opened it. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe closure. This one was different. Softer. Less accusatory. He wrote about anxiety. About feeling like he wasn't enough. About pushing me away before I could leave him. About saying he didn't love me because it was easier than admitting he was scared of how much he did. And for the first time, there was something in it that felt almost real. Maybe it was true. Maybe part of it, at least. People do self-sabotage. They do push away the things they're afraid to lose. But as I sat there reading it, I realized something that settled deeper than any anger I'd felt before. Understanding someone's pain doesn't obligate you to accept their behavior. He might have been struggling. He might have been afraid. But he still chose to turn my emotions into a test. He still chose to say words he knew would hurt me, just to measure my reaction. And that choice, that was his. So I replied, short, clear. I'm sorry you're struggling. I hope you get the help you need. But this doesn't change anything. We're still broken up. Please focus on yourself. His response came quickly. So that's it? You don't care about me at all? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then typed back, I cared about you very much, but you ended the relationship and I've moved on. I wish you well. That was the last direct message I ever sent him. A few days later, he tried once more, from a different number. I heard you're seeing someone new. That was fast. I didn't respond. Blocked the number. Because by then, it was true. 2 weeks after everything ended, I met someone. Not through an app. Not through a setup. At a friend's birthday dinner. His name was Daniel. He was a high school teacher. Lived in his own apartment. Paid his own bills. Showed up on time. Simple things. Normal things. On our second date, we were sitting outside a small cafe, the kind with uneven tables and string lights that tried too hard to be charming. And he said something that stayed with me. I like how direct you are, he said. It's easy to understand where you stand. I smiled, because I knew exactly why that mattered now. There were no hidden meanings, no tests, no emotional traps waiting behind casual words. If he felt something, he said it. If he wanted something, he asked. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was being evaluated. I felt chosen, without conditions. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. If I regret not fighting, not chasing, not giving Ethan another chance. And I always think about that moment. The kitchen, the pasta going cold, his voice flat and certain, I don't love you anymore. And I remember how he looked at me after, waiting, watching, not for honesty, for performance. And I realized that wasn't a relationship I lost. That was a situation I escaped. Because love, real love, doesn't require tests. It doesn't demand proof through pain. It doesn't punish you for believing someone's words. Love is clear, or it should be. Ethan wanted me to fight for him, but he never once fought for us. He tested, he manipulated, he calculated. And when I didn't play along, he called it cold. But it wasn't cold. It was self-respect. Now my house is quiet again. Not in that heavy waiting way it was before. In a peaceful way. The furniture is rearranged. The shelves look different. The air feels lighter. There's no second guessing. No walking on eggshells. No wondering if a sentence has a hidden meaning behind it. Just honesty. Just calm. Just space.
But
He wanted me to prove I loved him. Instead, I proved something else. That I loved myself enough to walk away. And that was the best decision I've ever made. Some chapters end loudly, with chaos and closure tangled together. Others end quietly, with a door closing, a lock clicking, and the realization that peace was always on the other side.
what?
This chapter is over, and I'm not looking back.